Hey guys, Patrick here with MT Knives, and this is our first ever question and answer segment. I'm pretty excited about this because it's going to give me an opportunity to answer your questions, get to know you a little bit better, as well as you to get to know me a little bit better. So far I got about a dozen questions to answer. I probably won't get them all done in this video. Michael asked, how do you pick the steel for your knives? Are you heat treating and tempering the alloys yourself? Well, Michael, steel is a lot like cars. There's a lot of personal opinion on what it makes the best steel, and a lot of it depends on the application. Obviously, if you're going to be doing some off-roading, you want a Jeep or a truck or something that's more designed for off-road use. And if you're going to be, just racing on a track, then you're going to build that vehicle to perform best in how it's being used. And knives are no different. There's so many different steels out there on the market, and there's so many different applications. If you're going to be using a knife, say on a boat in the ocean where you got a lot of corrosive, seawater, stuff like that, then you want a steel or an alloy that's going to be good for that type of environment. But generally speaking, overall, there's some steels that are good, like all-around steels. And so what I use primarily is XHP. It's a carpenter steel. It's a lot like D2. With a high carbon steel, you're going to get the best cutting performance. However, the downfall to high carbon steel is it requires lots of maintenance. It's going to rust easy. You got to keep it cleaned and oiled and take care of it. So what I like about XHP is it gives you a lot of the cutting performance of a high carbon steel. However, it is stain resistant. A lot of people don't like the term stainless because whenever somebody hears stainless, you just think, it's an inferior steel. It's not going to be that good for cutting. But XHP is actually like a powdered steel, so the grain structure is real fine. And as long as you do everything right when it comes to heat treating that steel, you're going to have an excellent performing blade. Next part is, are you heat treating or tempering the alloys yourself? Yes and no. When I first started out, I did everything myself. I first started out forging knives, and I heat treat it all at home. But when I do like a limited edition run where there's 100 knives, it is not cost effective, nor is it. When you got somebody that spent $500,000 on a piece of equipment that is designed just for heat treating steel, you're not gonna do at home most of the time. You're not gonna do at home what they can do with that $500,000 piece of equipment. So I send off the majority of my knives to be heat treated by companies that have the right equipment. Now, I do have a heat treat oven, and I do heat treat some of my own XHP, and I heat treat some various different steels. So, a lot of it, the advantage of heat treating yourself is if I need something done now, I can get it done now. When I send knives off to be heat treated, I'll send 100 or more off at a time, and so it's just cost effective that way. When I heat treat at home, I've got foil, I've got the electricity, and got my time. For large batches, when it makes sense, I send them off to be heat treated. Otherwise, I'll heat treat at home. I really like XHP. That's primarily what I'm going to be using. When I go into some kitchen knives and stuff, I might go with some AEB-L or some other steels that I feel will be better for that particular application. I started out and I used 01 with the Alpha and the General. And 01 is a great steel. It's a high carbon steel. It requires a lot of maintenance. And not too many people want to maintain a knife like that. Not too many people like a patina on their knife, or they want that nice, bright, shiny finish. So it all depends on who you're making the knife for, what they're going to be using it for, and lots of different factors like that. And just like cars, you're going to ask 20 different knife makers, and they're all going to give you 20 different opinions. I feel myself, some people, to save money will go with the cheaper steel. I don't feel like the cost of the steel is, it's only a drop in the bucket on the final cost of the knife. And I'm going to go with the best steels that money can buy to give you the best knife that you can have. So, well, one question down. Luke has asked, I'm curious about why you choose stock removal instead of forging. I noticed you had a nice little power hammer recently, and also, what is your favorite knife that you've made so far? And how many knives do you personally own for yourself, not including? Okay, I might save that last question, Lucas, for later, because I was actually going to bring and show. Well, I'll answer it, and I'll just put a photo of the knives that I currently have. Why I choose stock removal? Well, I went with stock removal because when I started doing limited edition knives, in order to forge and hammer out, I didn't have a power hammer at the time. So in order to do 100 knives, I knew that it was going to take far too long to do forging without a power hammer. And I obtained a power hammer, but since then I've been so busy doing the limited edition knife stock removal, I really haven't had time to play with it like I would. The other problem is I haven't really got it set up. I need a good exhaust hood. I need things set up in my shop in order to use it more efficiently. And honestly, since I started working for myself, I thought I was going to have all this time to get all these things done, and I just work more now than I ever did before. So that's why I'm doing mainly stock removal. Funny story, when I first started making knives, my dad, when I was in high school, gave me a hunting knife, a skinning knife. And it was a custom knife from out of Lee Summit, Kansas. And I don't even remember who made it. But I ended up contacting that guy when I started to get interested and get into knife making. I found out that he did stock removal knives. And when I found that out, I was kind of disappointed, because you get in your head this image of what a custom knife is, and you think this guy like pounds out every knife and grinds it and starts with a raw piece of steel and raw materials. Now that I make knives, I realize how much is involved in making a knife, and it's far more intensive than I ever imagined, and there's far more skill than I ever imagined. And it's like that with just about any type of career. A good friend of mine, the humble mechanic Charles, he's a mechanic, and that's what he does, and he knows a lot about it. And sure, I can go out there and I can change the brakes on my vehicle, and I can change spark plugs, and I can do this and I can do that. But to really truly be a professional, you have to be passionate about it. You have to know all the little things there are to know. And as far as knife making goes, I have a ton to learn still. So I'll never be finished learning about making knives, learning about steels, and I'm pretty sure that's just about any career path you go into. It's going to be a lifetime of learning. Also, what is your favorite knife that you made so far? Now that's really a tough question. I've made a lot of knives that I really like. I'm going to have to say, I can't limit it down to one. I'm going to say three. I'm going to say my mentor, Bill Davis, W.C. Davis, taught me how to make a Bob Loveless drop point hunter. And I wanted to make that knife because I feel like that knife overall is the most, to me it's like the 1911 of guns. It is the perfection, the perfect belt carry knife that you can have. I mean, that it's got a good design, it's got a good feel, it cuts crazy. That's the knife that I want to have if I got you know, if I just want a belt knife and that's the knife that I want to have, that's going to be my go-to knife. And we made together, Bill and I did some collaborative knives. We only made 6 of them, and they're the Bob Loveless Draw Point Hunters with Stag. And I'm really happy with how they came out. That's right up there with my favorite knife. And 2, because it's got the story behind it. Bill passed away about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, and so nothing will be able to replace that knife in the story behind it. Next, I made a forged, some laminated steel. It's a blue steel, Japanese steel, and I just love the mother of pearl. I want to do some with some black lip mother of pearl. Anyways, that's probably my second. Well, I hate to even number these 3. So anyways, and then the final one is the Mammoth Test knife that I made for Jack Spirko of the Survival Podcast. In fact, when Jack first told me that he wanted to use Mammoth Test, I looked at it, I was like, oh, really? To me, it was just ugly. However, once I got working with it and I started sanding it down and polishing it up, and man, I fell in love with it. I actually called Jack and said, hey, got some bad news. I'm going to have to refund your money and keep this knife for myself. He didn't find that funny. He said he knew where I lived. So them are the top 3 so far, and over the years, I'm sure, you know, there'll be some others right up there with them. But this Ranger knife, this Bob Loveless Drop Point Hunter, I feel like if I had one go-to knife for like a belt carry style knife, that would be the one. And how many knives do you personally own for yourself, not including those you are making to sell currently? Okay, so here's my current knife collection. This was the first knife my father bought me when I was in high school. This is a Murray Carter Cutlery neck knife. I trained under Murray, did his intensive course. And then this is Bill Davis, W.C. Davis, Bob Loveless Drop Point Hunter that he made for me. And a folder here that I bought from him. I carry that every day. I have 2 Alphas and 2 Generals. Both my sons are stakeholders, so they're going to have a full collection of my knives. I carry Genesis every day, along with Bill Davis's folding knife. I also have a Kershaw Leek I can't find right now. I try to carry it. I got a Leatherman that I carry every day, or most every day. And then these 2 are made from Chris Prater, and then we're both going to go to my boys when they get bigger. So this is my current knife collection. Thank you for your question. There was an interesting question Cutlery Lover put out on one of his videos the other day. He asked, what's the most you'd ever spend on a knife? Currently to date, I've only paid probably, I think maybe $600, somewhere around that ballpark for a knife. But I definitely, there's some knife makers I would love to own some of their knives. There's some really talented people out there. I might wrap this first video up there, and I'll have some more videos where I answer the rest of your questions. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in and watching, and make sure, send me your questions. I think this is going to be something that I'll probably try to do, you know, a video a month or something like that, because this is something I find enjoyable to do. It's something I find is important to do. It's a good way to answer your questions. Anyways, it's more fun. So, thank you for watching. This has been Patrick with MT Knives with the question and answer segment. Feel free to shoot me an email, patrick@mtknives.net, with your questions. Put in the subject line, MT Knife Q&A, and that'll help me find it. So, have a good day.